Every saint has a past. Every sinner has a story. Step inside the mind of someone who finally stops pretending to be good and embraces the darkness within. This psychological horror short film explores freedom, guilt, and the twisted beauty of becoming the villain you were always meant to be. The air in my lungs feels different now, cleaner, somehow sharper. For years, I breathed the stale, recycled air of expectation, the suffocating atmosphere of should. You should be kind, you should be patient, you should turn the other cheek. My lungs burned with the effort of it, the constant performance of a goodness that was never truly mine. I wore the mask of the saint so tightly that its edges began to cut into my skin, leaving faint white scars no one else could see, but I could feel them. They were a constant, itching reminder of the lie I was living. They called me dependable, the one you could always count on. They saw a placid surface and assumed the water beneath was just as still, just as clear. They never imagined the pressure building in the depths, the volcanic heat churning just below the crust of my carefully constructed smile. It feels amazing to embrace your inner villain. The first crack in the mask wasn't a dramatic shatter. It was a hairline fracture, almost invisible. It happened on a Tuesday, a day of relentless beige monotony. Someone cut me off in traffic, their hand raised in an obscene gesture as they sped away. And instead of the usual sigh and a muttered prayer for patience, something else sparked. It wasn't anger, not in the hot, fleeting way I was used to. It was a cold, clarifying thought. Asterisk, I hope they crash. Asterisk, the thought was so pure, so unburdened by the immediate recoil of guilt, that it took my breath away. I didn't push it down or try to repent. I let it sit there, a dark, polished stone in the palm of my mind. I held it, felt its weight, its coolness, and in that moment, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in years: authenticity. It was the first honest thought I'd had all day, perhaps all year. This new honesty began to bleed into other parts of my life. At work, when a colleague took credit for my project, the familiar sting of injustice was replaced by a slow, calculating calm. The old me would have seethed in silence, composing furious emails in my head that would never be sent. The new me watched them, cataloging their smug expression, the way their eyes darted around the room, seeking validation. I didn't confront them. Instead, I found a small, almost insignificant error in their part of the project, a tiny thread that, if pulled, would unravel their entire tapestry of deceit. I didn't pull it, not yet. The knowledge that I could was enough. It was a private source of power, a secret garden of malice I could retreat to whenever the world felt too saccharine, too false. The potential for chaos was more satisfying than the act itself. This was the first lesson of my new self. True power isn't in the explosion, but in holding the detonator. Guilt, I discovered, is a social construct, a cage built by others to keep you in line. Once you realize you hold the key, the bars simply melt away. I used to be haunted by guilt. Guilt for saying no, guilt for wanting more, guilt for not being enough. It was a constant companion, a ghost whispering failures into my ear as I tried to sleep. But as I leaned into this emerging villainy, the ghost grew quiet. I started small. I forgot to hold the door for the person who always let it slam in my face. I gave the wrong directions to the tourist who was rude to the barista. These were petty rebellions, tiny acts of discord in a world obsessed with harmony. Yet, each one felt like a victory. Each one chipped away another piece of the saint's crumbling statue, revealing the raw, unapologetic stone beneath. The true liberation came when I stopped seeing my darker impulses as something to be conquered and started seeing them as a part of my own personal ecosystem. Nature isn't good. A wolf isn't evil for hunting a rabbit. It is simply a wolf. For so long, I had been trying to be a sheep, grazing peacefully in a designated pasture, while every instinct screamed that I was born with teeth. Embracing the wolf didn't mean I had to kill every sheep I saw. It meant I finally had permission to acknowledge my own hunger, my own predatory nature. The world suddenly came into sharper focus. The sheep, with their manufactured innocence and blind conformity, became objects of pity, not aspiration. The other wolves, those who wore their darkness with a practiced, casual cruelty, became objects of study, not fear. I was no longer prey. I was no longer pretending to be. There's a twisted beauty in this transformation, a kind of dark, sublime. It's the beauty of a storm gathering on the horizon, the terrifying elegance of a predator in motion. To be good is to be predictable, to be static. To be a villain is to be a force of change, a catalyst. I began to see the world as a grand, intricate game, and for the first time, I wasn't just a pawn. I was learning the rules, seeing the invisible strings that moved everyone else. I could see the desperate need for approval in one person, the crippling fear of failure in another. These weren't flaws to be pitied anymore. They were levers to be pulled. The world, which had once felt like a prison, was now a playground. I orchestrated my colleague's downfall with the precision of a watchmaker. It wasn't a loud, messy affair. It was a series of whispers, of misplaced files, of anonymous tips about discrepancies that pointed directly to their incompetence. I watched as the mask of their confidence slipped, replaced by the pale, clammy sheen of panic. I felt no pity. I felt the detached satisfaction of a scientist observing a predictable chemical reaction. When they were finally let go, offering me a tearful, confused goodbye, I offered them the same placid, sympathetic smile I had perfected over years of being good. The mask was a tool now, not a cage. I could put it on and take it off at will. And as they walked away, a broken figure disappearing down the hallway, the air in my lungs felt purer than ever. It was the crisp, cold air of a summit, a peak I had reached, not by climbing, but by carving my own path through the mountain. Every sinner has a story, and mine is just beginning. The old me is a ghost, a faint echo in a past I no longer recognize. I don't miss her. She was weak, she was frightened, she was a lie. This new self, this villain, is the most honest I have ever been. There is no more pretending, no more apologizing for the space I occupy or the power I wield. There is only the exhilarating, terrifying freedom of the fall, and the certain knowledge that I was never meant to be a saint. I was born for the beautiful, magnificent darkness, and it feels amazing.